Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Young and Sane podcast. I'm your host, Tamarflourish, and I'm back here again. More life too, but what are we going to do now? Yeah, to life with life. But yes, I'm back from law school, and this is going to be bigger and better. I've missed you guys so much, and I'm so glad to be back to continue from where we left off. So yeah, let's get into today's episode. Previously, we've been talking about a lot of things, and most recently, we started with inner child wounds. The concept of inner child wounds, what it entails, and then the kinds and the types of inner child wounds. We've spoken about abandonment wound, spoken about the guilt wound, we've spoken about the neglect wound. So today we'll just continue with the trust wound. Alright, so sit back, sit tight. Let's get into this conversation. Welcome once again. If you're new here, I say welcome to the Young and Sane podcast. You did not miss Rodo. You're going to enjoy the conversations we have here. Conversation starters, eye openers, and all of those things. So you're going to have a nice time here, I promise. It's no hype, but yeah, it's facts. So yes, let's get into today's topic. Trust wounds. So yeah, trust wounds as a type of inner child wound. It's it's that kind of inner child wound that occurs when a child was constantly let down, you know, as he grew up by parents, caregivers, and all of those people that were in charge of the child's life, the people on which the child was depending for life and survival. So if those people were unable to consistently show or rather let down the child, disappointed the child, or put the child in areas of danger and all of that, that child may grow up having an issue trusting people. So basically, at the fundamental level, that is what trust wound entails. So that child now begins to live in fear, in constant fear of getting hurt or harmed by people, um, just because his or her caregivers did not protect him or her from danger, or offer this kind of um, trusting space and protection over the child during his or her formative years. So basically, that's what trustful entails. And a lot of times, danger could have happened in different aspects of life. It could have happened financially, and so that child grows up not trusting people financially. So yeah, trust won't occurs with different aspects of life, as with money, as with people, as with friends, as with situations, relationships, all of those things. So if that child saw disappointment in the way they cared for his or her emotions, or that child experienced danger in the way that finances were handled, money, and all of those things, the child may grow up, being scared or afraid in that aspect of his or her financial life, relationally, and just in whatever aspect of life. So, based on this lack of trust experienced by this child in his or her formative years, that child may grow up with the mindset of not trying to put him or herself in harm's way, in potential danger. So that habit of avoidance, always trying to avoid relationships, always trying to avoid responsibilities that come with relationship, and then always being, adhering to surface level relationships. This child may just, find him or herself trying to just do surface level things. You don't want to connect deeper with people, you know. So that child just begins to avoid a lot of things because he does not feel safe, he does not feel secure, scared of people hurting him or putting himself in harm's way. And so he becomes prone to avoiding people, avoiding situations, avoiding things, and just on and on like that. And it becomes a circle. But when we're talking about that child, even as an adult, you know, if you listen to our previous episodes on inner child wound, the inner child wound shows up where you're an adult, right? But that boy part of you that experienced that trauma, that girl part of you that experienced that trauma is still living vicariously through you, right? So that part of you is still living vicariously through you, and so we're going to be seeing it showing up in your adulthood, right? And so that's what we're calling inner childhood. So if you as a child experience danger, not feeling safe, not feeling secure, not having a safe space among your caregivers, always feeling like you're in danger or always being hurt or disappointed, you're going to grow up not trusting people, not trying to put yourself in that situation, right? And so this person, this adult now is always trying to prevent putting themselves in situations that will bring about betrayal, and all of that. But because this wound still runs deep in them, always feeling insecure and all of those, there's, I was talking to somebody recently and I said that you attract your kind of person. So the people that you're with at any level you are in life speak to the kind of person that you think yourself to be. So if you think yourself to be worthy, if you think yourself to be valuable, if you think yourself on a subconscious level to be important, if you know yourself, right? If you value yourself, if you're the kind of person who thinks themselves to be, say, for example, a king's daughter, like you're very precious, you're going to surround yourself with people that are of your kind, right? So at every point in time that you see your friends, your friends are a reflection of who you think you are, and that's just the truth. So a person with trust wounds will usually attract other people that are unable to trust also. They would attract same people that can betray them, will attract people that also want surface level relationships, people that avoid connections on a deeper level. They will attract people that are unable to give them the security they somehow desire because what they are still with the trust ones, right? They still have this trust on them, so they are going to attract people that also have trust ones. So it's just like that in life. You attract what you are. You attract who you are. All right. So that's just a natural consequence to life, and so it now begins to form this circle of life pattern on, and then they attract partners that are not trustworthy, and it validates this feeling or fear of people are not to be trusted. All right, and so it's just like a circle, um, a chain of reaction just happening over and over again, and it's like there's no coming out from this. So yes, the people we trust will most likely attract other people with same kind of trust, same pattern, same people that hurt them before, kind of patterns or lifestyle of the people I heard them before. That's just the natural um listen, and there's a lot of symptoms, to know if you have the trust on. But yeah, before I get into that, let me tell a brief story. So I now thinking about myself, I think I used to have the trust on, right? I'm at this place where I I have come to an understanding of humans, right? And I follow them, I pursue them with compassion. I really I operate from this place of curiosity. I want to really understand you. I want to really know what's going on in your head. I want to really know why you're thinking what you're thinking. But before I got here, um I I was traumatized, I had the trust on, yeah, largely. And I used to be so skeptical of getting into relationships with people because I'm like, you're going to betray me, you're going to trust me. That is like my fundamental thoughts about everyone that was trying to get close to me. And so even when I get close to people, it's a surface level relationship because I don't want to put myself in that situation where I'm going to be betrayed, I'm going to be let down by you. No, 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 I don't want that. So I'm not going to put myself in that situation. Right. So this was just a subconscious thing, but it was my everyday reality. Yeah, that was my reality. And when I think of it now, I think about something that was recurrent in my childhood. So I'm going to use this example. I think I've used it before. I don't know. Let's just get there. So I know that when I was younger, much younger, there are certain things that I used to ask my dad to get for us, to buy for us. And you know these promises that parents make to their children. I will buy you a aeroplane, I will do this, I will do that. And sometimes it's just, trying to make promises so that the child can conform the standard of obedience or you know just be happy or just conform to whatever feeling that the parents want the child to conform to. And sometimes it's not really from a place of seriousness, telling you for a fact that this goes a long way most of the times to affect a lot of children, especially very sensitive children. So I was that kind of sensitive child, and my dad would make those promises. Probably he was not serious. Maybe he was serious. I don't know. But at the end of the day, when he comes back and I do not see him fulfilling the promise he made, it breaks my heart in a certain way. And over, he did this again and again, innocently, But because of how sensitive I am, I think I held on to it and formed a mindset based off on that men are not to be trusted. And so men, like it was just men are not to be trusted. They don't. My mom hardly makes those promises, and so I was like, okay, men are not to be trusted. They do this and do this. When I grew up, right, and started having friendships with male, I noticed there was a pattern in my mind. Like whensoever any of my male friend say a thing, I look at him and it's from this place that I know he's going to disappoint. I don't trust him because he's not going to fulfill what he has said. He's just bluffing. That is what men do. That is how men are. And I carried on with that mindset from primary school, secondary school, into the university, and it kept replicating itself. So I always had this mindset that men don't really say what they mean. They're just joking around. Anytime they make promises, my dear, don't believe them because they're just saying it to whine you. Like that was my mindset. And until I got to this place where I started, consciously thinking about my thoughts. And I realized that this was what I always thought about men. And so now, if you're my friend, if you're my male friend, you would have heard me say one thing or the other, like refer to this. So anytime I'm having a conversation with them, except probably if we are not so close, right? I'll just again take whatever you say as a bluff. But if you're my friend, I will ask you if you're serious. Like my male friends are listening to this now, they will remember. I'll ask them if they are serious, and then I will try to remind them maybe several instances that they've said something and they didn't do it, right? And tell them that based off of this, I do not trust you to do whatever you say. So I just believe that you're bluffing, just making promises so that I can conform or so that you can impress me. But I'm not convinced that you're going to do it. So I tell them, but you see how this came about? It came from that innocent child trusting her dad's words and saying that he did not fulfill them. And based off of that, I began to feel a certain way, and then it made me form this kind of mindset. And over the years, all the men I met, all my male friends replicated the same pattern. Just very few of them kept to their words, right? But over the years, almost all of them replicated the same pattern, saying things and not doing them, saying things and not doing them, saying things and not doing them. So you see how this trust wound can just form itself and replicate itself into a pattern, a chain of reaction. So it's like happening everywhere at the same time, certain kinds of people, all of those things. So I just wanted to lay that example before I get into the effects of having this kind of trauma. So you see that the effect it had on me was always not trusting these guys, right? Another effect it can have is feeling insecure, feeling insecure when you relate with people, probably in a romantic relationship. He's making a lot of promises and you're not trusting him because of what you've experienced in the past. You know, your the length of your trauma, your traumatic experiences, and you're like, this guy is going to fall in my hands, he's going to hurt me. I cannot put myself in that position where I trust what he's saying. You're in this place of not feeling safe, not trusting, not feeling secure with anything that they say or any of their promises. And there's this other effect that it has, that you begin to um form these predispositions, always judge the people who betray other people. So you see that you become a gang, what will I call it now? Gang attacker of the betrayers. So everywhere you see a story about people betraying people, people hurting people, you're just going to gather and say, yes, not them, these people. Mm, I know them, these people, I hate them. And I think I used to be part of this before. Like, God, once I hear a story about someone that betrayed a person, oh my God, you're going to find me there. I'm going to talk a lot because why? Like, why say something that you don't mean? You get, and it's still a bad thing to say something that you don't mean, but attacking them from this place where you've been hurt and you're this kind of person that don't trust people because of what you've experienced. See, life is crazy, and I get it. Like, just want some is justifiable everywhere. Even the scripture says that talks about Jesus not committing himself to men, right? Because of course he did not trust them. But yeah, that's just life. But now, getting healed from the trust wound is very important so that you don't what will I say, project whatever experience you've had in the past. You've project your inner child wound experiences or traumatic experiences on people. People may be different, that a lot of guys that I met that were my friends, had this pattern of saying and not doing things, which reinforced what my dad was doing when I was a child, did not mean that every single man is like that. All right. So it could have been that if I met a good man and I continue projecting that kind of thing, it would have spoiled, a very beautiful relationship, or just, just mess things up. Right. And so, um, getting healed from the trust wound is very important. This could be a very tricky one, but nonetheless, healing from trust wounds is important. So you don't begin to project your distrust on every single person. Every single person is individual. So you treat individuals as individuals. You see their pattern of life. You see how they behave. You see how they act. You see how they keep to their words. You see how what their words mean to them, and you treat them that way, right? But not from a place of trauma, not from a place of your own wound and insecurity. All right, so that's why I think it's important to heal from the trust wound. There are other effects. Um, one of such is not wanting to explore new friendships, business ideas, adventure, just a lot of things. You're very, you know, suspicious, or you're very hesitant to explore new things because of your suspicion that it's not going to favor you. You don't trust that it's going to be good, right? And so that's another effect. Another effect of the trust wound, which I think it's a very big one, is the fear of being vulnerable. Like a lot of people, they fear being vulnerable, right? Because I don't trust you and I suspect that you're going to betray me. And if I tell you my secrets, if I bare myself to you, you're going to hurt me. You're going to you're going to treat me in a way that I will feel betrayed, right? And I know I used to feel this way before, and all my secrets, I kept them in a pot just to myself. But as I began to heal from my trauma, I realized that giving your secrets power, like you're just, in other words, giving your secrets power. Being vulnerable, I think, is a gift. And of course, there has to be a balance to it. You can't just be vulnerable with every person because it's not everybody that have sense, right? But being vulnerable is a gift. Is a gift. And for me, I see it as exposing darkness, like bringing darkness to light so that it can dissipate, right? And when you hold a tone of secrets, personally for me, I do not know about others. When you hold a tone of secret, there's a kind of hold it has against you that when you bring it out to the light, it gives you this freedom, gives you this sense of freedom. Personally for me, I do not know for you, but yes, so I've learned as I healed from the trust wound, the trauma, inner child wound, trust wound, I became more comfortable with being vulnerable with people. Although there are levels to these things, because it's not everybody that you can be vulnerable with. There are certain people that cannot handle your vulnerability, and there's that. So, emotional intelligence and the maturity to be able to tell them just the ones that they need to know and tell them how they should know it. I think that suffices. But then the gift of vulnerability is very important. Being vulnerable with your close friends, people that you can trust somehow, and also not being so scared that you know when they let it out it's going to harm you. Right now, I've told a lot of people like certain um mistakes I've made, a lot of things that have gone wrong in my life based on a fault of mine, my foolishness and all of those. I've told some people. Now, at one point I was scared of judgment, but then I'm like, and if they judge me, who cares? As far as I am able to forgive myself and deal with the issues, you know, and work on myself and become better than the mistakes I made. If I tell you about my mistakes and you want to use it against me, oh, you can gladly go ahead, bro, because I'm not that mistake. I just made a mistake and I've moved on from it. I've healed from it. I'm now better than that. I've learned my lessons. So I don't think you can't use it against me, right? So all these are right in the process of healing from the trust wound. All right, it comes like a complete package. So healing from trust wound helps you to learn how to be vulnerable, and also the kinds of people that you can be vulnerable with, and how not to give power to your mistakes, and all of those things, and eliminate the feeling of regret. So when you tell people, you're always scared that people are going to judge you, and all of those things. So yeah. So let's get into highlighting some attitudes, characteristics, those things you can pinpoint in yourself as you're listening to me right now, and they'll help you to identify if you have the trust wound, the inner child trust wound, or not. So let's get into it. The first one is, I mentioned earlier, right? You're going to fear trusting people. You'll be so scared of trusting people. Like, you have this inability to trust people. It's just, it doesn't come naturally. Like, you do not trust people. Or on the flip side, you trust people a lot. Yeah. So it can be either ways, no trust for people. Then on the flip side, you trust people a lot. You easily trust people. You easily commit yourself to people. You easily give yourself away to people. And it comes from this place where you really want to trust. Like, your subconscious really wants to depend on people. You've been hurt before. And so you want to get past that, right? And you're so desperate to find people that you can trust because you've never seen people you can trust. So you easily just give yourself to people. I've heard people tell these people as what's it now? Naive people. Sometimes you're very naive, right? And there's a lot of nuances to this, but let's not get into that. So your inability to trust people or over trusting people. Yeah, yeah. So another one is the fear of commitment. You're so scared to commit yourself to relationship, friendships, like totally. You just give parts of yourself because you're like, human being will still betray, right? So you have this inability or fear of commitment in friendships or relationships, no matter what kind. Yeah. Then another one we've talked about it is the fear of being vulnerable. You're scared of opening up yourself to people, letting people know who you are, where you are from, what has happened to you, because you fear that you're going to give them the power to judge you or criticize you or all of that. So yes, the fear of being vulnerable because you don't know how they're going to take it. Now, I mentioned earlier, right, that there's a way to know who you can trust, who you can be vulnerable with. You can't be vulnerable with everybody, right? But being vulnerable is a very important thing. So knowing the place of people to even be vulnerable to them is a skill, is something that you need to know, and it comes as a total package when you're healing from trust wound. In my coaching sections, I tell people, it comes as a total package. So teaching you emotional intelligence and how to know who to be vulnerable with, right? The people to trust. Now, you're not being vulnerable with them because you totally trust them that they're not going to use it against you, but you're being vulnerable with them because you're transparent, right? You want to lay everything bare. Like, yeah, it's not like whatever you're telling them is you giving them the power to hurt you, right? Even though vulnerability comes with that, when you're vulnerable to people, you kind of give them the power to hurt you, annoy you. But in this sense, when you learn the people to be vulnerable with, it's not in itself choosing a kind of people that you're giving them this weapon. No, use it against me. In the place of vulnerability, you have to come to this balance, right? Where your things you tell people, you're so healed or you're so gone past, or even if you've not even gone past it, but you have to be able to have developed this mindset that you're bringing it out to the light, you're making yourself free you're forgiving yourself. You are a lot of things has to go in the works. So that information you're giving to this person is not powerful enough to bring you down when it's used as a weapon, when it's weaponized. Of course, it's going to hurt you, but it's not going to bring you down. All right. So it comes with a total package. And in my coaching sections, I let you in on all of these things, nuances. So yeah, being vulnerable with people is um a problem. Yes. So that's one thing. We talked about commitment, right? And then this fear of always not wanting to explore new things, like you do not want to get into things that will bring you to your desired future because you're so uncertain about the future. So this uncertainty about the future, the predisposition to always be scared, like I'm scared that this future, I'm uncertain about it. So if you're so uncertain about your future, that could be an indication, right? You have this fear of uncertainty. Let me not say uncertain about your future because not every one of us is really certain about our future, but you have this fear like sitting pretty on your mind about the uncertainty of your future. You're not even trusting in God. You're not even trusting in whatever. You're not even trusting that your future is safe, secure, and okay. You're just so scared that it is not what you want it to be, right? So you could be suffering from the trust wound. Now, if you're this kind of person that takes up this stance that everybody's against you, you're always scared that people are against you and they want to come after you, you most likely have the trust wound, always thinking yourself as the victim. Everybody's against you. And so these are the aspects of also being scared of criticism, not being able to take it because you think that you always want to be defensive when people are trying to point out something to you or say something to you, like they're always against you. You have the trust on, right? So you're just taking this stance like, oh my god, victim, vanquish. I don't know, that kind of position, always taking the victim's position, right? An approach to life like everybody wants to hurt you. When they want to say something to you, you're always defensive, like, bro, it's not like that, all right? So if you're like that, you're always scared of what people will say, to you when probably they want to point out something, or even when people are criticizing you and you're so scared. Um, you could have the trust on. All right. So yes, always having your guard up, always having your guard up, being defensive goes to show that you have the trust on. And as I mentioned before, you're not just afraid of uncertainty. You're not just afraid of uncertainty, but now you have extreme paranoia. You have extreme anxiety when you think about you have extreme paranoia, you have extreme anxiety when you think about the future. And that goes to show that you, my friend, have the trust wound. When you have lack of trust in the future, you're always uncertain about the future. I mentioned that before. And now this leads you through a path of negative thinking. I used to have intrusive thoughts, but that's not what I'm talking about here. So your intrusive thoughts are so strong and you tend to lean towards your intrusive thoughts. What if this person fall? What if I die? What if this happens? What if this person shoot me? Somebody's coming to kill me. Like all of these things, bro, you're always not trusting, always not confident that something's going to work out in your favor. Scared, too anxious. Yeah, you have the trust. And then when positive feedback is always handled with skepticism, it's this one looks like always having your guard up and then being defensive, right? When people want to criticize you, all of those things. But yes, this time around it's positive feedback and you're not sure. Probably someone is complimenting you, handing out compliments, and you're like, this person just they whine me. It's not true, right? You have the trust one. Now, let's go. This other one that talks about leadership. Guy, I used to be this kind of girl that runs away from leadership positions, and it was because I had the trust one. So if you're always running away from leadership positions, it's because you don't trust yourself and you don't trust yourself to be able to handle the responsibilities that's going to be put on you, and you don't like that people trust you. You're always scared, right? Having this because I'm like, how will people trust me? So I'll be put under pressure to, ensure that I don't betray their trust. I remember this situation in first year, second year where I was given a leadership position in first year, my campus fellowship. I wanted to run away. Like guy, I'm like, no, 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 I'm not deserving of this because I don't trust myself. And you're giving me with this position. And let me tell you, it was a position that had to do with money, financial secretary. I say I will see people's money and run away. So fellowship, but I was so scared, like, I don't trust myself. So you people giving me this position and now entrusting me with this is a lot of work. So I know that I did a lot to frustrate the people, like not to frustrate people per se, but then I just did a lot, and at the end of the day, the position was taken away from me, and also I felt so relieved. But yes, I felt um this leadership position guy. So always running away from leadership position. And I remember that that was my default, always running away. Once it comes, become this, no, I will run away. Yeah, that was because I had a trust wound, right? See, let me tell you this one that is very evident. See, if you would rather do the driving than let somebody do the driving, Baba, you have trust wound. Like, if you would rather do the design than let someone else do it, you have a trust wound. Like, forget perfectionist though. I know you people will bring the this thing of perfection. There's that, but sometimes like you just want to do it by yourself. You have the trust on because you have the inability to trust others to deliver. And then it also stems from this place that you want to control other people's behavior, how they do things. You want to control the behavior and the outcome of things in your life and other people's lives. Like, bro, you have the trust on, all right? So, yes, if you always find yourself in these positions, you have the trust one, baby. Then you're constantly scanning other people, scanning them, scanning them, scanning them. Yes, it's good to scan people, it's good to discern, right? But when it's overtly excessive and obsessive, you have the trust wound, all right? And then the trust wound in yourself can show up as you not trusting yourself. And you not trusting yourself can show up in having low self esteem, inferiority complex, um, thinking about yourself as lacking in ability to execute tasks or whatever you want to do. So if you're always having a hard time making decisions, like you don't know how to make decisions, and then every time you make decisions, you're judging the rightness of that decision based on the outcome rather than the process it took you to get to the decision, then you most likely have the trust one. And then if you're struggling with not feeling enough, it's also part of the things that go to show that you do not trust yourself, right? You don't feel enough. And then you're always envious of others with the inherent thoughts that is easier for them than it is for you. And that's why you're struggling. Then you have a trust wound. And also, if you always relapsing into the feelings of regret of your past actions, past decisions, past mistakes, then bro, be you're dealing with the trust zone. All right. So all of these things just goes to show that you're dealing with not trusting yourself. It's dealing with the trust wound. So how do you heal from the trust wound? Let's just gloss over a few things that you can do to heal from the trust zone. The first thing to do to heal from your trust zone is curiosity. I mention this always. Curiosity is like the major thing that will help you when healing from inner child zone. So being curious about where is the foundation of this feeling or this wound? Where did it start from? Remember in this podcast I mentioned how that my um my dad was making promises, when I was much younger, and probably from a place of just making us conform to certain things and all of those things. But I, as a sensitive child, it struck a chord in my heart. I'm like, men do not fulfill their promises, right? So he was making promises that he did not fulfill based on the fact that he wanted us to conform to certain attitudes or behaviors or actions or lifestyle or just whatever, right? So always be curious to know where did it start from. Be curious to know. And then if it originated from the dealings you had in the past with people, forgive those people. I get that a lot of people say forgiveness is a choice, but forgiveness is a fundamental step in your healing process. It helps you to release other people and also make room for a release of yourself, right? A release of yourself. So forgiveness is very important. Now, when you forgive the people, that occasion the disappointments or just whatever, it will bring you to this place where you are now free, right, to work on yourself, act on yourself. Now, you've taken away the power of your healing from those people. When you forgive them, you've placed it on yourself, right? So you're now free to heal at your pace in your own timing, right? So forgive people that have occasioned the disappointment. Then you get to this place where you begin to work on yourself, to become accountable to yourself, hold yourself to become accountable to yourself, and begin to trust yourself, right? There are a lot of things, that are involved in this, but work on yourself and become accountable to yourself. So you begin to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, um, in some level of compassion that you begin to develop for yourself, you discover that you can also trust other people, right? Um, and then after working on yourself and trusting yourself, learning how to trust yourself, holding yourself accountable so that you can build this integrity, self integrity that you know yourself for. You can take it up to the point where you begin to update your beliefs about others. You will find out that when you begin to trust yourself, you will have the capacity to trust other people. Now, not based on what they say or just whatever, but based on how they are. You'll be able to have that compassion when you have begin to, exhibit self-compassion on yourself. You see that you can be compassionate towards others. You really, really understand why people act why the way they do, right? And so you'll be able to trust them based on where they are or not, but it won't be from a place of trust wound, right? And so begin to update your beliefs about life, about yourself, about people, just about basically everything. Now this is just a rundown, a summary of how to reparent yourself, how to heal from the trust wound. I bet you, I know that you know that it's deeper than this, right? And so with coaching, with therapy, you can, right, get better. So I think we're going to wrap up on this note today. Thank you guys so much for being a part of today's podcast on trust zone. And I'm sure if you listen to this point, if you listen to the end, you must have gotten something that stands out for you, right? Something that you'll be able to take and hold on to, something that you begin to work on yourself, right? With the stories I've told in this podcast episode, I'm sure that it will have a lot of help to you. Yes, so thank you guys so much for listening in. We are now on YouTube. All right, you can check out Tamarflourish on YouTube, the podcast section. You have our podcasts uploaded there. Yes, so you can now listen on YouTube, not just Spotify alone. Thank you guys for tuning in on this podcast episode, and I hope you learned a lot. I'm grateful that I was able to share a lot of things on this episode, and I hope that you learned a lot. Please share this with your family, your friends, everybody. Tell them that the Young and Sane podcast is back again. We're going to be live again next week, Friday at 8 a.m. Don't forget that I love you. Let's talk about life always and living. We're going to be young and sane people. Yeah, my conversations here. So, yes, have a fun time, have a fun weekend. Enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, live to the fullest. All right, see you next time. Bye.